Dear student, welcome to our science episodes. This is episode 3, unit 1, lesson 1, chemical reaction. Chemical reactions. In the last 2 episodes, we discussed types of chemical reactions. We discussed thermal decomposition reactions and simple substitution reactions. And today we are going to discuss double substitution reactions and oxidation and reduction reactions. Double substitution reaction, we said before that substitution means replacement. The word substitution means replacement. It's a reaction in which double substitution or simply an exchange occurring between the ions of two compounds to form two other new compounds. Look at this picture. We have A and B elements in one compound and C and D elements in another compound. Double substitution reaction will occur or simply an exchange. So A will be with D and C will be with B. Types of double substitution reaction. We have reactions between an acid and an alkali. We call this type of reaction neutralization reaction. We have reaction between acid and salt. Another type of double substitution reaction is the reaction between two salts. So either an acid and an acid with an alkali, or we call it a base. So acid-base or acid-alkali reaction, neutralization reaction. Acid with salt or two salts. Now we will discuss the reaction between an acid and an alkali. And again, we call this reaction neutralization reaction. It's a reaction between an acid and an alkali or a base to form salt and water. As an example, we will take the hydrogen chloride as an example of the acid, sodium hydroxide as an example for alkali. The result will be a sodium chloride salt and H2O water. The reaction between the hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide producing sodium chloride salt. Sodium chloride is the table salt. And water, on heating the water or on heating the resultants, the water will evaporate and sodium chloride, the table salt, will remain. Another reaction, another double substitution reaction between an acid and a salt. Acids react with salts and the products will depend on the type of both the acid and the salt. Now we have sodium carbonate. This is the salt, sodium carbonate, a salt of the sodium metal, and hydrogen chloride representing an acid. When they will react together, you can see here that the resultant will be sodium chloride. Sodium will replace the hydrogen and become sodium chloride, and H2O, water, and carbon dioxide gas will evolve. Whenever you see this arrow pointing to the top, this means that a gas evolved. Can you see this picture? This is a test tube containing sodium bicarbonate, and we will add hydrochloric acid to it. Then they will react together, forming sodium chloride, water, and carbon dioxide gas. This carbon dioxide gas, we can detect it with a lime water. It will make the lime water turbid. Now we will discuss the reaction between two salt solutions. A reaction between two salt solutions accompanied by the formation of a precipitate. This means that a precipitate will be formed at the end of the reaction. Let's take sodium chloride as an example of a salt and silver nitrate an example of another salt. When they will react together, they will form sodium nitrate plus silver chloride. Notice here that the sodium replaced the silver in this salt solution, resulting in sodium nitrate. And the opposite, the silver will replace the sodium in this salt solution and resulting in silver chloride. So again, there is an exchange between the elements in the two compounds. At the end, a white precipitate is formed. That's why the arrow is pointing down. Look at this picture. You will see sodium chloride reacting with silver nitrate solution to form sodium nitrate solution plus a white precipitate of silver chloride. Well, now we are going to discuss the third type of chemical reaction, which is oxidation and reduction reactions. Oxidation and reduction processes take place by two ways, either by losing and gaining oxygen or hydrogen, and this is called the traditional concept, or losing and gaining electrons, and this is called the electronic concept. So it's all about losing and gaining. The concept is about losing and gaining, either losing and gaining oxygen or hydrogen elements, or losing and gaining electrons. Let's together discuss the traditional concept. Hydrogen gas, H2, plus copper oxide, under the effect of heat, will give copper and water. Look at this picture. You will find the copper oxide, black copper oxide, in the test tube, and the hydrogen gas will pass over it. This Bunsen burner or flame will provide heat. After heating the mixture, copper will be released, and copper metal, of course, red copper element or red copper metal, and water. What really happens in this reaction? Hydrogen is oxidized. Why oxidized? Because it gains oxygen. It becomes H2O instead of H2, so H2O. So oxidation, this is a process of oxidation, as if the reaction is composed of two processes. Number two, copper oxide is reduced because it loses oxygen. It was copper oxide and reduced, or there is a reduction reaction into copper element. Copper oxide, it's reduced, but at the same time, we will call it oxidizing agent because it causes the hydrogen to be oxidized. So it is the oxidizing agent. So copper oxide is reduced, and at the same time, it is the oxidizing agent. Hydrogen is oxidized. At the same time, it's called reducing agent because it caused copper oxide to be reduced. So it's the opposite. If the hydrogen is oxidized, it is called the reducing agent. And the copper oxide is reduced, it's called oxidizing agent. So oxidation, it's about gaining oxygen. And reduction, it's about losing oxygen. Here we go. Look at this table with the picture, and let's discuss together the difference between the oxidation and reduction. Oxidation is increase in oxygen or the decrease in hydrogen in a substance. So if there is a loss of hydrogen, this is oxidation. Or gain in oxygen, this is oxidation. Of course, it's the same name, oxidation, oxygen. So try to remember it like this. If the element will gain oxygen, it means that oxidation happens. And if it loses hydrogen, it's the same oxidation. What about reduction? It's the opposite. If the element will gain hydrogen, this is reduction. If the element will lose oxygen, this is also reduction. So what is an oxidizing agent? It's a substance which gives oxygen or takes away hydrogen during a chemical reaction. What about reducing agent? A substance which gives hydrogen or takes away oxygen during a chemical reaction. The second type of oxidation and reduction reaction is based on the electronic concept. It's not the gaining and the losing of oxygen and hydrogen molecules. It's the gaining and losing of electrons. We will take the sodium and the chlorine as an example. Two metals, sodium and chlorine. Together will form sodium chloride, which is the table salt. Let's see together. Reaction of sodium and chlorine produces sodium chloride, the table salt. It shows oxidation and reduction reactions without presence of oxygen and hydrogen. There is no gaining and losing of oxygen and hydrogen here. It's only gaining and losing of electrons. Let's see together. The sodium atom will lose one electron, and this will change the sodium atom into a positive sodium ion, while chlorine atom will gain this electron lost from the sodium, and it will change into a negative chlorine ion. So this is the electronic concept, where losing and gaining electrons. Here we go. Sodium atom, and there is an electron transfer to the chlorine atom. Then the result will be sodium ion, positively charged ion, and chlorine, negatively charged ion. Why the sodium is having a positive charge? Because it loses one electron. So the protons become more, and the protons are positive. The chlorine will gain an electron, which is negatively charged. So it will add to the negative charge of the chlorine ion. But remember that ions are unstable. They have to bond together to form a stable compound. This compound is called sodium chloride or the table salt. What really happens in this reaction? The sodium atom loses an electron and converted into positive sodium ion. This is oxidation. Loss of electrons means oxidation. And at the same time, the sodium atom is oxidized, but it is called the reducing agent because it caused the chlorine to be reduced. The chlorine atoms will gain one electron, and it is converted into the negative chlorine ion. This is called reduction. Chlorine atom will be reduced. At the same time, chlorine is called the oxidizing agent because it caused the sodium to be oxidized. Let's talk together again about oxidation and reduction from the electronic concept point of view. Oxidation, it's when the atom loses electron, one or more electrons. Reduction, when it gains one or more electrons. At the same time, oxidizing agent, it's a substance which gains an electron or more. And the reducing agent is the substance which loses an electron or more. Well, time for questions. Question number 1. This is an equation. Of course, it's a balanced equation. And the question is, which part is oxidized? Yes, the carbon. The carbon element is oxidized because it gains oxygen. Which is reduced? Yes, the silver oxide. The silver oxide is reduced because it loses oxygen Which is the oxidizing agent? Think, guess. Yes, it's the silver oxide again. It's reduced and at the same time it is the oxidizing agent. Why? Because it causes the carbon to be oxidized. The reduction process happens for carbon. Question number 2. What happens when adding diluted hydrochloric acid to sodium hydroxide solution? Yes, hydrochloric acid is a diluted acid and sodium hydroxide is an alkali. So this is an acid-alkali reaction or a reaction between an acid and an alkali. This is called neutralization reaction. This will result in formation of salt, sodium chloride, and water. So again, here is the equation. Hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide, it will result in sodium chloride and water. Dear students, thank you for watching and wishing you the best of luck.